Hi, I'm Anjali Kupreja. I'm a chartered accountant, and welcome to this tax news update. We'll be briefly discussing what is multilateral instrument. Just starting with a brief background, as we know that the BEPS action plans have been recommending to the countries that they should renegotiate tax treaties in order to incorporate tax treaty related measures which would prevent treaty abuse or which would prevent base erosion and profit sharing. However, practically speaking, every country has a number of tax treaties, and considering the number of the countries we have, it may be a very lengthy process to renegotiate all the tax treaties with all the countries and by all the countries. So, they thought that it might, by the time that all the tax treaties may be renegotiated, it may be a very lengthy process. And by the time all these tax treaties are renegotiated, half of the economic scenario of the world might still have changed. Or the people may still have got a lot of time to plan around these provisions by the time they are implemented in anticipation. So they thought a lot as to what could be the solution. So they came up with a plan that let's do one thing, that let's not do treaty by treaty amendment between two countries. Let's do one thing. Let us all the countries come together and we'll sign a master agreement. In this master agreement, we will all sit together and negotiate the terms, and we will take suggestions from the BEPS action plans and accordingly put the tax treaty related measures. After we agree to this master agreement, what we will do is every time we are applying a bilateral tax treaty, we will not read it on a standalone basis. We will read it along with a master agreement that we have entered for those two countries. So that seemed like a very practically possible solution. So what happened in November 2016? 100 countries got together, they negotiated the terms and they put it down in the multilateral convention. Multilateral because it is not bilateral between the two governments, but because it is with the government of all the nations who have combined and who have joined hands for a same common cause. So in June 2017, the historical date in the international tax history, 68 countries signed this multilateral convention instrument, which is multilateral instrument, and they agreed to the terms of the agreement. Basically, this multilateral instrument is worded article by article, and it will have the articles which are worded in a way that it would prevent base erosion and profit sharing. So we will just discuss how this multilateral instrument can actually make a difference. As far as when will it be effective, most likely it can get effective anytime next year or maybe in 2019. The multilateral instrument which is being signed right now is provisional. Whatever the OECD is acting as a depository, whatever the provisional list of the tax treaties that the countries want to be subjected to the MLI, that's called the cover tax agreements. That list has been submitted to OECD. All the countries' reservations, their choices, whatever they have discussed or signed right now has been submitted with OECD. Once at least 5 countries ratify, accept and approve the MLI and submit it to the OECD, then this particular MLI can become effective. Now we will just move on and see how this MLI offers a lot of flexibility. See, MLI offers a lot of flexibility because it has given a lot of choices. Choices for, minimum standard can be achieved in multiple number of the ways. So there is a choice how a country would want to achieve it. Then choices to apply certain optional provisions or alternate provisions. And reservations. Each country can choose to opt out, whether fully or partially, out of the provisions that they would want to opt out of, except for the minimum standard provisions. Because the whole idea of entering into the multilateral instrument or the master agreement was to achieve the minimum standards for preventing tax treaty abuse. So, except for minimum standards for prevention of treaty abuse, rest most of the things can be chosen or reserved. Like we've seen, most of the choices that are there that can be made by the countries, the choices can be asymmetrical. That is, you follow your choice, I follow mine. So, we can do two different things as we choose to. However, most of the reservations may require to be followed symmetrically. That is, I choose to reserve certain things and the other country would have to respect that reservation. This we'll discuss with the help of an example. So we will move on to, we'll just say that there is this Article 7, which is basically of the multilateral instrument, which is based on the BEPS Action Plan 6 treaty abuse, and this prescribes the minimum standards for entering into the tax treaties and for preventing treaty abuse. Since it's compulsory, we might just discuss this. The Article 7 of the multilateral instrument offers three choices. First, principal purpose test. Second, simplified limitation of benefit plus principal purpose test. Third, detailed limitation of benefit clause. Out of the 68 countries which have signed the multilateral instrument, 55 countries have opted for principal purpose test only. 12 out of these 68 countries have opted for simplified limitation of benefit plus principal purpose test only. Norway is yet to decide. However, none of the countries have opted for a detailed limitation of benefit clause. Focusing specifically on the Asia Pacific region, we see that out of the 11 countries of the Asia Pacific, 9 countries have opted for principal purpose test only. Those 9 countries would roughly be Australia, Singapore, New Zealand, Pakistan, Japan, China, Hong Kong, Korea, Fiji. So, and only 2 out of these 11 countries, that is India and Indonesia, have opted for simplified limitation of benefit plus principal purpose test. Now, there can be 2 scenarios. We are just taking an example. For example, if MLI was to come into force and we were to talk about China-Singapore tax treaty. So, while applying the China-Singapore tax treaty, we observe that China has also chosen principal purpose test only as the minimum standard, whereas Singapore has also likewise chosen principal purpose test only as the minimum standard. So, straightforward, there is no problem. Both the countries would follow the same principal purpose test as the minimum standard for the treaty abuse. However, the twist comes when there is a mismatch or partial match of the provisions. Let's take an example. Say India-Australia tax treaty was to be followed and MLI comes into the force. So we observe that India has chosen to follow simplified limitation of benefit plus principal purpose test, whereas Australia has chosen principal purpose test only. So in this scenario, the multilateral instrument does not provide any solution which would be agreeable to both the countries. However, it does give a process whereby these countries can make choices. Say for example, in our the instance that we have discussed, Australia can have 3 choices. First choice, it can change its choice and agree to India's choice, and both of them symmetrically follow simplified limitation of benefit plus principal purpose test. However, if that is not suitable to Australia, Australia might go for the second option. Australia might say that, I accept both the choices, however, we choose to follow them asymmetrically. That would mean if Australian business entities would come to India, India would continue to follow simplified limitation of benefit plus principal purpose test as the minimum condition for treaty abuse or in followance of the Article 7 of the multilateral instrument, and vice versa. When the Indian business entities go to Australia, the Australia will continue to evaluate it on the principal purpose test only as the treaty abuse minimum standard. However, should this also not be acceptable to Australia, then Australia has a third option available to it. It can insist that both India as well as Australia would follow strictly principal purpose test only. However, this third option can be exercised only subject to India. That is, India will have a right to respond. It can either accept it or it can refuse it. Should India accept it, there would be no problem. Both of the countries will follow principal purpose test only as the minimum treaty abuse condition following the Article 7 of the multilateral instrument. However, should India refuse, then the multilateral instrument would become non-operational. That is, India and Australia tax treaty would not be impacted by the multilateral instrument. Since this is the minimum standard for treaty abuse that has to be entered into, India and Australia will have to bilaterally think some solution or work out some solution. So basically, we come back to square one. जहाँ से शुरू हुए थे वहीं आ गए. because again, that was the whole idea of having a multilateral instrument. So we say that when finally the multilateral instrument will come into the practice, or when it will be followed, maybe in 2018 or 2019, we will see how these practical challenges are actually addressed to and how effective it is. But it is definitely a historic decision which is going to change the whole tax treaty scenario world over. So we wish all the governments and OECD all the best for their endeavors, and see you again next time. Bye.